everyone in YouTube land. Hope you're all doing well and you're all safe and happy. This morning we've got about 2.5 hours to kill, so we're going to jump back on the VY Calais drift car this morning, get it in, get it set up on the hoist. When we took it drifting, there was a few improvements, changes, modifications, things like that we found that the car needs. So we're going to start ticking some of those boxes and getting through a few little things on this because there is an event coming up. It's still a little while away. But we want to just sort of get a few things done on this. So we'll get it in and I'll show you what we're going to start on. Rightio, so the first thing we are going to stuff around with is I want to change the position of the hydraulic handbrake. I found myself when we took it drifting, I was sort of like reaching over, like having to lunge across a little bit to sort of grab it. And also when I pull it, I'm sort of pulling it towards the center console essentially. So I want to bring it across and also bring angle in a way so I'm actually pulling it towards me. But I can't bring it across too much because otherwise my elbow will hit the seat when I pull the lever. Lever. Sure. So I've just been doing some measuring and it looks like I just sort of need to bring it towards me, only probably about 140 mil, but then also change the angle. So we're just going to go through and get all this out of here. We'll suck the brake fluid out, we'll undo the line, we'll go under the car and remove the bracket, and then we'll remove the handbrake from the bracket as well. And we'll probably just weld a plate onto the top of it and just sort of see how we go. So I probably won't film too much of this. I didn't film the fabrication part when I did this bracket. And I might just show you what it looks like at the end. I don't know, we'll see. So this is basically what we've come up with. Obviously that's where the handbrake was bolted before. We've just got this bit of 3mm steel plate that we've sort of angled down a little bit. We'll put a little bit of a spacer under the rear mount. And that's basically going to get it sort of towards us on the angle that we need. So we'll just go through and glue this together now. Paint it black, put it back, hit the track. Cool beans. This is our finished result. So we've got that plate TIG welded onto the existing bracket top and bottom. It's nice and strong. This thing is rock solid. It's not going anywhere. I thought there'd be a bit of flex in the plate, but it's actually pretty good. Had to reroute the line from behind the gauges to sort of around the shifter. Not happy with this hydraulic line at all. What I might do down the track when I can find the motivation to do it is I might actually remove this line altogether, stick it back out the floor and bring it through the trans tunnel on that side. And sort of just bring it up here so I can just sort of go onto the shifter, onto the hydraulic handbrake, sort of running down like that. As far as the position goes, my back is hard up against the backrest now and I can still grab this handbrake with a bent elbow. I'm not even having to reach for it that much. It's in a really good position now, really happy with the position of it. Can still get on the shifter and change gears. My arm fits down the side of the reservoir. So yeah, I'm really happy with the position of that. So yeah, we'll move on to the next job. Rightio, so the next thing I'm going to do, hey mate, hey, is, and I didn't actually realise this until we got back from the event and put this car on the hoist, is you can see there are some scuff marks on the inside of the wheel. Not great. The reason for that is because we've got the steering rack spaces in here. At full lock, the inside edge of the rim is actually rubbing on the tie rod end. So best and easiest way to get around that is to just fit a hub spacer to space the wheel out slightly, and that's going to sort of fix our problem. I've measured it up. A 5mm spacer is going to be enough to sort out what we need. You think just take the wheel off, put the spacer on, put the wheel back on. However, if you look at there's a workbench there that I just crashed into. If you look at the wheel studs and the wheel nuts, the stud is already recessed into the nut as it is. So I've had a bit of a measure up. If we put a 5mm spacer on there, we're only going to have about 6mm of thread engagement per stud, which is just not going to be enough. I like to have at least 10, ideally 12. So as a result, we're also going to, so here's our wheel hub spacers here. These are 5mm ones. So as a result, we're also going to fit longer wheel studs. So to do that, you've got to take the hub off. We've already jumped ahead and got this side blown apart. So wheel off, brake caliper off, and it's hanging up. You've got these 3 10mm Allen head bolts that hold. There's another one sort of up in there that hold the hub on. Then the hub comes off and it looks like that. And we've already gone through and knocked the factory studs out. So we're just going to go through and install all of these guys. So you just sort of sit them through there. You put a couple of washers or a couple of big nuts, and then you use one of the original wheel nuts to tighten this up until it sits flush on the back of the hub. All right, so this one's done. Got the long studs in there. So we'll just go through and slap this side all back together. We'll show you what it looks like once this side is done, and then we'll go through and knock this side out. Just like that, all back together on this side. Looking good. So you compare that to that, there is quite a considerable difference. And mind you, that is with the spacer on too. Cool, now we've got clearance. And through the magic of internet, this side is also done. There is our long studs there. And what's even better, how good the center cap fits. Excellent. All right, pop that center cap on, onto the next job. All right, so the next thing we're going to do on this thing, by the way, it's actually about a month since I stopped working on this car, but due to the magic of internet, you don't need to know that. It's only been a few seconds. On the day when we took this thing drifting, we'd get about 2 laps in and the thing was getting hot. Now, as I said previously, condition of the radiator in this car is unknown. It's what was in this car when we got it. Don't know if it's blocked or whatever. I've got a feeling it is, because it shouldn't be getting that hot that quickly. So I'm going to do 2 modifications to this car. So I've already gone ahead and started doing a couple of things. I've drained the coolant out of it, so I've just taken the bottom radiator hose off. And I've taken the intake off as well. That goes into the airbox and the engine cover, which are just sitting there. So the first thing we're going to do is change the thermostat. So originally this thing had no thermostat in it when we first started working on it. End up putting a standard thermostat in it because the temperature was fluctuating a fair bit. I think the standard thermostat opens at 192 degrees. So we're actually going to put a high flow thermostat in, which is lower. It's a 180 degree that this one opens. So that will give us a bit of cooling, and we're also going to do something else, but we'll get this going first. It's pretty easy to do. Just take the hose clamp and off the thermostat housing, slide the top hose back, and you've got 2 13mm bolts and the housing comes off. So we'll do that, we'll clean it all up, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all apart. Cool beans, we've got that all pulled apart, and I've sort of cleaned it all up with some emery paper and stuff. Same deal on the thermostat housing, that's all cleaned up as well. Standard thermostat is 195 degrees, in case anyone was wondering. So it is actually 15 degrees, that's Fahrenheit by the way, 91 degrees Celsius, so 195 Fahrenheit, so this is 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Colder than this one. Physically though, they look quite similar. They're a little bit different in the bodies, being a high flow one, but not too dissimilar. So we'll go through and slap all this back together. I like to just use a little bit of Sikaflex top and bottom of the gasket as well. Feel free not to do it if you don't want to. It's just something I like to do. So we'll get this back together and I'll show you what else we're doing. All right, that's all back together, so I'm happy with that. So colder thermostats, very, very worthwhile modification if you are giving engines a hard time. And especially these high flow ones, it does considerably increase the rate in which coolant can flow around the cooling system. But if you've got a half blocked radiator like I think I do, it's not really going to make any difference. But for the cost of what a thermostat is, it is a very worthwhile modification. There is one other big thing we're going to do to the cooling system, but unfortunately I don't have time to do that now because I've got to head off and do a job. So I will have to pick this up another day. But as far as you're concerned, you're going to see it now. And we're back. It's been a few days, so now we've got a little bit more time to stuff around with this thing a little bit more. So the next thing we're going to do on this thing as far as cooling system goes is we're going to put a different radiator in it. I do apologise, I have jumped ahead a little bit. I've taken the radiator fan shroud out and also just taken the top cover off and removed the top hose. So standard Ecotech radiators, as you can see, the core of the radiator is actually quite thin in comparison to the end tanks. So I think these are 16mm thick from memory. Yep, about that, about 16mm. Factory cars that have an LS1 from factory, I think the core of the radiator is 32mm. So what we have done is we've gone on Evil Bay and bought this. The core on this thing is 54mm. So this was, I literally went on eBay, sort by cheapest first and looked for the thickest one, and that's what came up. I think this thing was only a couple of $100. I'll share the link to the item in the description of this video. This is straight out of China. I think Kim Jong-un uses this radiator in his drift car. I'm not 100%, I'll have to call him and ask. But the way I figured it is, it's got to be better than what we've got. So we're going to throw that in. So that combined with the colder thermostat, I'm sure is definitely going to keep temperatures on this thing under control. Plus, that should hold about 2 to 2.5 litres more coolant than what this thing does. So it's going to actually physically have more coolant in the cooling system. So we've just got to finish getting this out. It's just a matter of undoing these clips and sliding the radiator out, transferring the rubber mounts over to those ones, and then sliding this thing in. So we'll just do that. Sweet as. So we've got this bad boy sitting in there, all sitting pretty. Got the mounts in, bottom hoses on. So it's just a matter, I've got the old one over there, so now it's just a matter of going through and buttoning up everything else. Sweet, everything's back together as far as radiator goes. The fan shroud does sit a little bit further back with this radiator, so there is a little bit of a gap across here, but that's fine. And also it did make it a bit tight to get this duct on, but with a bit of creative manipulation I was able to get it all on, so that's fine. All that's left now is to fill up the cooling system and bleed it up, but I've got to get it on level ground to do that. All right, so I got the thing in the workshop now on level ground. It is also, again, about a week later. So we're going to fill up the cooling system on this thing. So as well as using some fresh water, we're going to obviously chuck some new coolant in it, and also going to tip in a bottle of this Redline water wetter. This is something that I used to use many years ago, and I've just found out that you can actually still get it. Apparently it drops coolant temps by several degrees, but whatever, we're just going to chuck it in. So yeah, we'll get this thing all bled up, and if we've got a bit more time today, we'll move on to another thing. Next thing we're going to do, and I do apologise that I keep moving the car around, I'm just sort of jumping on and off it. Hello, Jason.
Hello.
I'm going to change the tensioner pulley. I noticed that the bearing in it was a bit rumbly when we were at the track, and even when I was letting the thing get up to temperature, when I was going through filling it up with coolant, I noticed that it was a bit rumbly even more so. Proper way to do this is to replace the whole tensioner assembly. We're not going to do that. We're just going to replace the tensioner itself. This is reverse thread, this bolt. So it's just a matter of undoing that, flicking the belt off, undoing that bolt, slipping the new pulley on. So I've got a brand new tech part pulley here. So yeah, we'll just go through and change this over. And that's all done. Sweet. On to the next thing. And we're back. Calais on the hoist, front bars off, obviously. The next task we're going to do, when we took the car out drifting last time, one thing I found was I kept getting hard spots in the power steering, and I think that's for two reasons. I think the power steering fluid is too cold, and I also think that this power steering cooler is too big. So back when we did the auto to manual conversion, that was originally an automatic transmission cooler. And because we originally built this car to do burnouts, not drifting, I went for the largest transmission cooler that I could get. So the thing is quite big. Like it's massive. So I think what's happening is it's making the power steering fluid too cold, and it's also creating a bit of a restriction, is my guess. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove that. I still do want to run a power steering cooler. So I've just gone ahead and ordered this one. So same brand, it's just about a third of the size. So we're basically just going to remove this one, sort of mount that one in a similar position to where that one is, so you can still sort of see it through the grill, because I think it kind of looks cool, and bleed up the power steering system. Another thing I've done as well, which I almost forgot to tell you, is if we look inside the car, I've actually rerouted the hard line for the hydraulic handbrake. So that didn't take long for me to do that. That only took about 45 minutes. And yeah, it was just really annoying me where the position of it was before. So it's a lot neater how it is now. Everything's out of the way on the passenger side. So yeah, so that's good. So anyway, we will get this thing swapped over, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So looking like this, it doesn't really look like I've done anything, except for the fact that you can't see the cooler down the bottom now. But smaller one is all in. I've just got to fill up the power steering fluid and bleed it up. Old one is just chilling down there, so that'll make its way onto something else. So I'll just throw the bumper bar back on, and that will be pretty much it. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this video up there. This episode, which has sort of taken me over a month to sort of film on and off with jumping on and off the car. The whole purpose of this video was to make the car with the package that we currently have, just to iron out the kinks that are in the car with how it is currently set up. So the whole point of that is to make sure that we can have more time on track, and the time that we spend on track to make it more enjoyable for us as well. Very, very much aware that the car still needs more power. Very, very much aware that I need to address the gearbox and clutch situation in this car. Those things cost big dollars. So with how I would want to go about doing things, the car works as a package as it is. So I just wanted to make the most of what we currently have before we start moving forward with this car, doing other things. When that happens, I've got no idea. It just sort of depends on finances and stuff like that. But yeah, we've already improved on what we've already got, and I'm wrapped with that. If you want to see more videos on this car, as well as all the other stuff that we do here, please remember to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as follow us on our socials. Until we see you in the next video, guys, be safe, be good, and take care of yourselves and one another.